Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what is my time? My time is a set of experiences that have happened over my lifetime that I hope will be of value to you. So in 1993, I was in a realty executive's office in Escondido, California, and I was a new mortgage lender. I worked for a mortgage broker in San Marcos, California at the time. And I was talking, I'd been introduced and brought into that office by one of their agents who became a friend of mine. And actually later ended up coming to work with me. And he had invited me to come into the office, and I was in there talking to one of the agents. And the owner, a guy by the name of Joe Mecaro, walked up to me, and he was about half my size. He's a little guy, but he carried a big stick. He walked lightly and carried a big stick, man. Joe was amazing. And Joe walked up to me and kind of whispered, "Hey, Mike, walk me out to my car." So I walked out with him, and naturally I thought the worst. I thought I had done something I wasn't supposed to do. I thought I was in trouble. I thought he was going to kick me out of his office. So halfway between the front door and his car, I basically in the middle of the parking lot said, "Joe, whatever it was I did, I won't do it again. Please don't kick me out of your office." And he turned around and looked at me and he goes, "I'm not kicking you out of my office. Will you come here, please?" So I go over to his car, and we stood there at the back of his car in this parking lot, and he said to me, he said, "Listen, I've only known you for a couple of weeks, but I get the impression that you want to be the best of the best in your industry, in the mortgage industry." Now he's got my attention, right? Now he's singing my song. And he said, "Look, he goes, you're going about growing your mortgage business all wrong. You need to be, if you want to be a CEO, if you want to be a captain of this industry, if you want to be considered the best of the best, you need to be in the builder side. You need to stop working with realtors like the one you were just talking to who works with me. And you need to go out and you need to identify one of the top 5 mortgage banks in San Diego County in production. Top 5, one of the top 5. Sign on with them and get into their builder group and start working with builders." So top 5 isn't good enough for me. For those of you that have gotten a chance to know me, you know this. I went to number 1. I figured out what the number 1 was, and I called that manager over and over and over and over and over again. I called him for 2 months. And I never got a call back, nothing. Not even an acknowledgement that I had called. And then I ended up going out to a B&I group. I ended up going out to LaTip. I ended up going out to some of these business networking places. And I found out that they had 4 or 5 mortgage loan officers on a waiting list. They had a bunch of realtors on a waiting list. My chances of getting in there were going to be few and far between, and for a long time I was going to be waiting. So I decided to create my own networking group, because when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, right? You figure out a way to hit the curveball, right? So I went out and I formed my own networking group, and I started with this guy that worked at Merrill Lynch in Oceanside, California. He was a stockbroker with them. And so we decided that we would start our own weekly get-together, or monthly get-together, pardon me. We'd get together once a month. We'd do it at his office in his conference room. We would all bring our lunch. So we didn't like spend money on food and all that kind of stuff. We brought our own lunch to save money. And each one of us, we went out and found a business owner that owned a body shop. We went out and found an auto body shop. Went out and found an auto mechanic. Went out and found a dentist. We went out and found a doctor. We went out and found different people, a restaurant owner, right? And every month, that person, it was a rotating thing. Every month, each member would get up and talk about why we should refer business to them and why they had the best business of, restaurant, orthodontics, whatever. And so we did that. And one of the things that he mentioned to me on our very first meeting was, he said, "Mike, we are a sponsor, national sponsor of the Entrepreneur of the Year, Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year Award. And by the way, if you know anybody who's in business that you admire, who you're trying to get in front of, or you're trying to get the attention of, give me their name and phone number. I'll call them. I'll tell them that you nominated them for Entrepreneur of the Year. And when we do that, they'll notice you. You'll get a call. I promise you this will get their attention." Well, who do you think I nominated, right? I nominated that branch manager from the number 1 mortgage bank in production in San Diego County. So he got off the phone, literally just hung up with this guy. This guy calls me directly and he says, "Where are you?" And I said, "Well, this is the branch manager." "Where are you?" I said, "I'm in Vista, California." And I said, I'm 30 minutes away. And he said, "Get in your car and come down here right away." "Okay, so I'll see you in 30 minutes. So I got down there, I walked in. The receptionist asked me, she said, "Are you Mike Litton?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "They're expecting you in the conference. I'm supposed to put you in the conference room." So I go into the conference room and I sit down. I'm not in there more than a minute. He walks in and he goes, "I want to know exactly what I have to do for us to be in business together right now." And I said, "Well, I'm ready, let's go," right? So I end up signing a contract. I end up joining them, literally left the company I was with and joined them the very next day. #1 mortgage bank in production in San Diego County. These guys are awesome. They're the best of the best, right? They have a builder group. His cousin's running the builder group. So I go meet his cousin. Cousin's name is Joe. I said, "Joe, let me in the builder group. Let me in the builder group." No. You're too new. You're too wet behind the ears. They'll eat you alive. No, you can't be in the builder group. So I tried for 6 months. I pounded on Joe. "Joe, let me in the builder group." I even went out and arranged for Joe to meet builders that he could do loans with so that I could get into the builder group, and it didn't work. So I had an assistant who, by the way, was that agent at Realty Executives. If you remember the previous podcast, he was the agent at Realty Executives that had gotten me in and introduced me to Joe Mecaro. So he had actually been fired by my manager. My manager didn't like him. My manager let him go. He went to work, ironically enough, can't write this script, right? He went to work for the second #2 producing mortgage bank in San Diego County. They were right behind the #1, okay? And he goes to work there, starts on Monday morning. He gets the branch manager's assistant comes over and says, "Hey, the branch manager is taking you," John's name's John. "John's taking you to lunch today. So make sure you're ready." So he takes him to lunch and he sits down with him and he says, "Hey, who's Mike Litton?" And my former assistant says, "Well, Mike's a fire breather. He's super competitive. He's super motivated. He's never going to rest until he wins. And then after that, he's going to try and just absolutely crush his competition. So he's somebody that really wants to win in the worst way, and he'll do whatever it takes to win in terms of how hard he works, the whole thing." And he also said, and by the way, he wants to be a builder rep, and they won't let him in at the other company. And this branch manager kind of lit up and he said, "Really, we're starting a builder group here right now. Do you think he'd talk to us?" And my former assistant said, "I'd call him." So they did. They called me and they recruited me over because I wanted to be in the builder side. It's what Joe told me to do, right? So I ended up going over to the builder side, and literally within 2 years, I'm the #4 producer out of 880 loan officers for the company. #4 producer nationwide. I'm one of the top producing loan officers, loan producers, loan originators in the entire industry that year in 1996, okay? So Joe's advice was right on. And by the way, I went on to do a lot more in the way of builder business, and I did really, really well. And I was one of the best in the builder business in San Diego County. Here's the thing. January of 2020, so let me back up. January of 2020, I go to a dinner called Bull and Bear. One of the podcasts that you're going to hear is an interview with Alan Nevin. Alan's one of the top economists in the nation, and Alan was the bull in the Bull and Bear dinner that the Building Industry Association put on every January. And we went every January. They never agreed on anything except January of 2000, the year 2000. They finally agree on one thing, and that is that we're running out of permittable land in San Diego County. And I'm telling you, I got a chill from head to toe. Why? Because I had a baby here that was getting ready to be 2 in 2000. October of 2000, and my wife had a baby on the way. We had a baby on the way that was coming. It turned out June 16th of that year of 2000. I now was going to have 2 babies at home, and 100% of my business was builder business. I didn't have any business outside of that. I left there that night. I left that dinner that night absolutely convinced that I had to divest. I had to get back into working with realtors. I had to get back into doing refinance. I had to get back into finding other sources other than just builder business to work on. So I did. I went to work doing that. I went to work with a company that year that was an in-house lender for a real estate franchise, and I ended up running into a gentleman who ended up changing my life. And I'll tell you that on another podcast. Here's the deal, and here's what I learned, and here's what I practice every single day. For those of you that know me, you know this is the honest truth. If I come across somebody who's younger in the business, I pay it forward. When people call me and I don't have the time to take their call, I do it anyway. I spend 20 minutes, I spend 40 minutes, I spend time on the phone with them because they need it. And this is in honor of Joe Mecaro and his memory. We lost him, unfortunately, several years ago. But Joe was a mentor of mine. And Joe pulled this kid who didn't know anything about what he was doing, pulled him aside one day and completely changed my life. Now, to my credit, I followed his advice and I took action. I followed exactly what he told me to do. But he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to pay it forward. But Joe had had people do that for him in his life in the past, and he wanted to do it for me. For those of you that are at a point in your career, even if you're only a few years into your career, and there's somebody newer that's working with you or somebody newer that's your competition and they need help, please take the time in honor of Joe Mecaro. Please take the time and honor him and pay it forward. Take care of the people around you. It will pay dividends like you cannot believe. I'm going to share a story with you in another episode of Mike Time about a time when it actually came back to pay me big time, and it was right in front of my father-in-law. And it didn't cost me anything except I invested time in this person that I didn't know when I didn't have time to invest in him. This is another episode of the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. This was Mike Time. I'll see you on the next episode. We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.